My name is Red.
But from you, the listener, that we've come as far as we have, and I hope to continue hearing from you to help this program grow and become a valued visitor into your week. Just for any new listeners or listeners who are like me and always lose those scraps of paper with phone numbers, email addresses, and websites, the website for the Donna Shades is giascott.com, and you can always either email me through that site or directly by emailing me at giascott@gmail.com. Now, some of the things that listeners have asked for is for me to give away copies of the books being discussed on the air, T-shirts, and now I may be a devout coffee drinker myself, but with the expense of the mugs and the shipping, and if someone wants to be a sponsor, that's not on the table for now. We are discussing both the books and the T-shirt ideas, and I hope more listeners write in and voice their opinions as to what they'd like to see us doing, as well as how we should do it. Since we haven't even designed a Donna Shades T-shirt as of yet, we also need some input on that idea. Once again, we have a fantastic show lined up for today with two separate guests and entirely different topics, and I hope that you all really enjoy them. Our first hour guest is Ellen Dugan, a psychic clairvoyant and practicing witch, as well as an enthusiastic gardener and author of 8 books, with number 9 being released this winter. She has written Garden Witchery, Magic from the Ground Up, Elements of Witchcraft, Natural Magic for Teens, 7 Days of Magic, Spells, Charms, and Correspondences for the Bewitching Week, Cottage Witchery, Natural Magic for Hearth and Home, Autumn Equinox, The Enchantment of Naboth, and The Enchanted Cat, Feline Fascination, Spells and Magic, Herb Magic for Beginners, Down-to-Earth Enchantments, and Natural Witchery, Intuitive, Personal, and Practical Magic. That one just came out this year, too, didn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, I thought so. And then your book, How to Enchant a Man, is being released after the first...
The release date is January the 1st.
Ah, very good. Very good. Now, during the second hour, we're going to have Linda Montaldo, a certified hypnotherapist, as our guest while we discuss hypnotherapy, hypnosis in general, and popular misconceptions about hypnosis. But for now, I want you all to welcome our guest, Ellen Dugan, to the show. So, Ellen, could you give a brief introduction to yourself for our audience?
Well, you pretty much hit all the high notes. I have been a practicing witch for over 24 years. I am the leader of a magical group of women that meets several times during the year at all the witches' holidays, which are called Sabbats. And I'm active in the community, and I teach classes on natural witchery. And I've been touring a lot to support the books, and I have 3 children, 1 who lives on his own and 2 who are in college. And I've been married for 25 years, and I live in the Midwest.
Wow, that's a nice little nutshell right there. And with 9 books to your credit, that's impressive all on its own. What would you say is in common among all these books?
I think what's in common with the books is that it's very down to earth and it's very practical. And probably what I get the most positive reviews for and the most loyal fans over is that I have a sense of humor, and that pretty much is woven through all the books.
Senses of humor are always very, very good. In fact, I found the feline title rather intriguing, as I am the sole reluctant staff member for my evil alien cat. What would you say that your feline book is all about?
The Enchanted Cat actually won Best Book of the Year this year in the Magic and Shamanism category. It won the Cover Award, which stands for the Coalition of Visionary Resources. So it's really excited when it won Book of the Year for its category, no pun intended. But The Enchanted Cat is a book all about the cat, the folklore, the magic, the mystery, all around the feline. There's cat astrology, there's feline feng shui, of course there's spells and charms to work with your cat, and the whole idea that working with your cat as a partner and as a friend and as a trusted confidant, working with them with your magic.
Ah, that'd be interesting. My cat, unfortunately, has the status of being the alien invader, and my dog keeps hoping I'm going to come to my senses and realize this cat is an alien and should be eaten at sight.
But, there's an old saying that we don't own cats, they own us. And anybody who has a cat knows that you are not in charge. The cat is in charge. So you just need to deal with that and then go forward, and you'll live a much happier life.
Exactly. That's why I said I'm the sole reluctant staff member. Yeah. She decided, actually, she wasn't supposed to live with me. I was not on the market for a cat. she was just going to be fostered by me in her home. She was a cute little kitten, and she decided she wanted to live here, despite the dogs. So, like I said, I am the reluctant staff member. Now, as a single woman, I find that How to Enchant a Man title a little bit intriguing as well as terrifying.
The whole point of that was my publishing company had pitched the idea that they were looking for more books for their how-to line. And that was one of the books they had a whole bunch of ideas that they threw out to all the authors. And I saw that one and I thought, wouldn't that be fun? I could really let my sense of humor fly on that one. I could approach it from the standpoint of a woman who's already in a relationship or married who wants to keep her man enchanted. I could approach it from a situation of someone who needs to find a new man, or someone who's looking to find a man, or someone who needs to work on their own personal goals and their own personality and their own personal power so they can attract a good man into their life. And so I thought, wouldn't this be fun to really tackle this topic and really look at it from a practical standpoint and really let my sense of humor rip, which I did, and just to approach the whole topic of love magic and women's empowerment. And, because the truth is, if you want to enchant a man, if in your life, then you have to feel that you are worthy of love, and you have to have a good attitude, because no man is attracted to any woman who's grumping about their size, or, oh, I'm having a terrible day, nobody loves me. Men aren't attracted to that. Men are attracted to verve and enthusiasm and a good personality, and someone who's outgoing and who's happy. That they're attracted to.
Well, what guys need to remember is the reverse is true as well.
Well, which is why when you've got a relationship and you're happy with somebody, there's guys that seem to come crawling out of the woodwork, and then you're thinking to yourself, where were these guys when I was looking for a man? Well, that's because they weren't attracted when you were feeling sorry for yourself when you were down in the dumps. But when you embrace your personal power and step up and decide that you're worthy of being loved, then they come into your life.
Exactly, and that's not really advice strictly for a woman, because it truly is. The reverse is true. Who wants a man who's going around, oh, I'm poor, I'm bald, I'm pot-bellied, I'm
exactly
getting
right.
old, yada, yada, yada.
That's exactly right.
But at the same time, I hope you covered it in your book, because the thought that popped into my head is, oh dear, what if I accidentally enchanted one and I couldn't get rid of them, and now I have
there's a whole section on that too, on how if you go overboard and how to safely get somebody to move along. And there's also a chapter on there called The Dark Side of Love, because unfortunately the number one thing I'm always asked and always sent emails about is everybody wants a love spell. Well, the biggest misconception that people have about Wiccans and witches is we don't do love spells. We do spells to attract love into our lives, attract romance into our lives, to increase loving vibrations in our life, but we never cast a spell on a specific person because that's considered a manipulation. And many times people go ahead and they play around because they think, ooh, this will look fun, I'll try it, what the heck, and they cast a spell on someone specific, and then all of a sudden they've got this stalker-type personality in their life. The person starts acting out, they can't get rid of them, they won't leave them alone, and then they've got to figure out how to get rid of them. And so I thought it was important to include in this book that comes out in January that, listen, if you break the rules, here's what happens. If you're stupid enough to break the rules, here's how you fix it.
Exactly. And it's something important. Not only when you break the rules, because there are people who, unfortunately, it doesn't take much to cast them in the role of a stalker.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah.
And when
we're talking about being a witch and the love spell thing, for somebody who doesn't really know what a witch is, and that's this image of the Halloween witch riding a broom across the full moon, what would you recommend as a good, authentic source of information?
Well, any of my books, obviously, but a good, authentic source of information is to take your happy self to the library or to any bookstore and start reading through the Wicca section and look at paganism and look at what Wicca really is. Because to be honest, a witch is a follower of an earth religion. They usually work spells for healing, for protection, for peace, for prosperity. It is a different type of religion. It is an earth path. It's very quiet. It's very low-key. It's not what people imagine. I know witches that are doctors, lawyers, veterinarians, garbage collectors, or secretaries, or waitresses. They're paralegals. You name it. I have met a witch from any profession you can care to name. But being a witch is not charmed. It's not like the movies. It's not what people think. It's just a different religious path that holds the earth as sacred, that believes in a god and a goddess, and that follows the wheel of the year, which are 8 holidays that witches celebrate. 4 of those being the first day of winter, the winter solstice, the first day of spring, the vernal equinox, the first day of summer, the summer solstice, and the autumn equinox. Those are 4 of our sacred holidays.
Okay. Yeah, because a lot of people do have these really wild ideas.
Yeah, and a lot of that comes from Hollywood. A lot of that comes from Hollywood, and I think I spend more time telling people, no, we don't do that, than I do anything else.
If I'm remembering correctly, witch is a word like crone that once upon a time simply meant a wise woman.
That is exactly right. Witch meant wise, because the word Wicca, W-I-C-C-A-E, originally meant wise. And then some people argue that W-I-C-C-A meant wise man, and W-I-C-C-E meant wise woman. And as time went on, that was, combobulated down into the word Wicca. And a wise woman, like a healer, a seer.
Right. And wisdom comes in many, you can be wise as a healer or wise as, in many other ways as well. Just in the way of life and how it works, Wisdom comes in many different packages, you might say.
Mm-hmm.
Now, another facet of yours, you are a psychic clairvoyant.
Correct.
Some of our listeners may not be exactly sure what that term means, let alone what it means to be one. Can you help them out?
To be a psychic means that you are sensitive to energies that are unseen. A lot of people use the term supernatural. I don't buy into that. I don't think anything is beyond nature, so I don't buy into the term supernatural. A psychic is someone who gathers information beyond the physical 5 senses, which would be, touch, taste, smell, hearing, blah, blah, blah. A psychic gathers information beyond that. Some people call it intuitive. Some people call it the sixth sense, which of course makes people go, oh, like I see dead people, like the kid in the movie. And not always. The biggest misconception I run into, because I'm a clairvoyant, is people look at me and they go, oh, like on the TV show Medium. And I'm like, no. There's nothing to do with this. Even though, I do have some mediumship. I don't have ghosts popping around my house and popping up and I have to fix their problems. It doesn't work that way. To be a clairvoyant means that you see, which means I have visions. I have dreams, and I literally see pictures or almost like miniature movies in my head that tells me a story and then helps me when I'm doing a reading for somebody, and then I get an idea of what's going on with them.
Now, when this does happen to you, would you say that it is a literal sort of mini vision, or is it symbolic?
It can be either or. For me, it can be very brief. It can be very strong. It can be symbols that I have to figure out. It's almost like a game you played as kids the game where you sounded out, second syllable sounds like, and I really have to figure out what my senses are telling me. I was doing a tarot reading for a lady in Idaho a few weeks ago, and I was giving her a reading. I was not doing a medium-style reading. It was just a plain tarot reading. As I was talking to her, I said, okay, who passed away in your life very recently? And she got big tears in her eyes, and I said, is there a dark-haired woman who just passed away recently? And I said, you answer me yes or no. You don't say it's my cousin in Pittsburgh. Just yes or no answers. You let me tell you. And she said, yes. And I said, okay, I'm getting a picture in my head, and it was very strong, of her in this hideous striped swim in a boat, and there's not a lot of lakes in Idaho where we were. And I said, she's laughing hysterically, and she's pointing at her swimsuit. I said, what does that mean? Well, apparently, her and her friend went out every year to try on swimsuits together. So it was like this big family joke. And they had spent about 3 weeks before the woman had passed away, they had spent a whole weekend on this boat camping trip thing. And so she was, burst into tears and very relieved. And I said, stop worrying about your friend. She's fine. She's laughing. I could hear her friend laughing in my head. So for me, that was using some mediumship ability, but it was clairvoyant because I saw the picture in my head.
Okay. Because I had always understood clairvoyant, it meant you'd see pictures more towards the future. So,
it can be future, present, or past. It's any of the above.
Okay, you kind of adjusted the meaning a little bit in my own head. Now, briefly before we go on, for any listeners who would like to call in a question, you may do so on our toll-free number in North America, or actually in the United States, 1-877-786-0562. Once again, our toll-free number is 1-877-786-0562. Okay. Well, that's that. Do you also do tarot readings? You said something about that?
Actually, I started using tarot cards because it was the only way I could get people to calm down. Most people don't like it to sit down with the psychic and have me look at them and start pulling stuff out of their head. That makes them really nervous. It really frightens people. So I taught myself to use a tarot deck because it gave people an opening. It made down. It gave them something else to focus on, and then I could look at the cards, interpret their meanings, and then look at that person and then figure out what the images in my head were telling me in connection with the cards, and then we could go from that. Some people like a traditional clairvoyant reading from me. I've had people bring me like items. I had a lady in Massachusetts bring me a wallet a few years ago. And again, I said, you tell me yes or no answers. It's not, oh, it's my uncle from wherever, because and I see psychics do those kind of sneaky tricks all the time, and you shouldn't do that. It should always be yes or no answers. And I said, okay. She handed me the wallet, and I said, a man. I said, and he's related to you. It's like your dad or your grandpa. And she said, yes. I said, is it dad or grandpa? And she said, it's dad. And I said, okay, don't say anything else. And I said, okay, I'm seeing medals and a uniform, but there's a war. I said, was he a fireman? And she burst into tears and proceeded to tell me that, after the reading went on, that her father was a fireman. However, he went to Vietnam and was killed in Vietnam, and he was awarded the Purple Heart. And she did not know her father at all. He died when she was very small. And so all she had was this old wallet of his, and she wanted to know what I could get from the wallet. So I told her, some names which matched like his middle name and his brother's name, and I told her what I picked up off of that. And sometimes I do readings just like that without cards, but most don't like that. And the truth is, to do readings like that without tarot cards takes a lot of personal energy, and it's very draining. It's like if you were running a marathon, because your body pays the price for putting that much energy into something. So I don't do those kind of readings as often, and if I do, I charge more for them than a tarot reading, because a tarot reading is quicker and it's easier for me to get the information. Where if I'm doing a clairvoyant reading, where like I'm reading an object or I'm reading a photo, or I'm simply holding someone's hand and pulling out images out of their head, that takes a lot more out of me, so I charge more.
And that makes sense. I know that a lot of, living in New Orleans, we have lots of tarot readers here, and a lot of them will say, it does act as sort of a soother for the person that's getting the reading, because
it gives them something to focus on.
Right, and it does make it simpler. It sort of reminds you of what you already know, I think is the phrase that
most tarot readings are confirmation. Very rarely it's something where you're going, oh, how did you know? Usually it's like, yeah, I knew that. And you hear people say that over and over again. It's usually confirmation.
That's true. That's very true. Okay, do you have any particular kind of tarot card that you prefer, deck?
I use the deck that I had. Was the first deck I ever had. It's named after the artist who did it, and it's called the Mary Hanson Roberts Tarot Deck, and it's based on the traditional Rider-Waite, so it has very, very classic, very, very traditional images. The magician looks just like the Rider-Waite, which his artwork is fancier. That was the first deck I had, and that is the one I still use for public readings, because it's just my oldest deck, and I probably use that one the most.
I think that's a pretty deck. To me, it looks like
it's a beautiful deck.
Pencil.
Yeah, it is. It looks like colored pencil. And when I first did it, I wanted something pretty. It was pretty.
Yeah, that's pretty. It's a pretty deck. It's not a pretty deck.
I'm a girl. I wanted it pretty.
Yeah. That makes absolute sense to me. Why not have a pretty deck?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so, have you ever done any readings for, say, police or along those lines to help solve a crime?
No, and that's another big bugaboo that I run into all the time. And I tell people this because people kind of get this grandiose scheme, well, I'm going to be noble and go into the police department and tell them what I know about a crime. The reality is, if you stroll into a local police department and you tell them you're a psychic and you've got information on a crime that there's no way you should have, you know what happens? You end up getting arrested, or you become a suspect in the crime. It's not like TV. You don't stroll in. You're not Alison Dubois. You don't work for the CIA or whoever she works for. That's not the reality. The reality is the cop goes, how do you know this? How do you know this?
Actually,
I don't do that. I don't cross that line. I've never had a cop approach me, and quite frankly, I don't watch the news, because if there's a kid missing on the news, I'll see a picture, I'm like, oh God, and I'll think he's underwater, and 3 weeks later they find him underwater somewhere, and I'm like, ugh. So I don't even watch the news, because I don't want to know, because I will figure out something, and I don't, but it's so vague, it's not enough to help anybody. It's just usually my vision's always tied in with my emotions, and it usually makes me feel physical, so that's not something that I would want to pursue.
Yeah, the psychics that I've talked to that have worked on police cases, they were brought in, usually don't even live in the area the crime occurred in.
Correct.
And they're brought in, hired by someone, usually it's a private citizen.
Yeah.
you has hired them to come in because the case isn't getting solved or whatever. And, they describe it as a very unpleasant experience.
It is. It's nasty, and it'll physically make them feel bad. They'll feel dirty.
Exactly.
They'll feel sick afterwards. Yeah, I mean,
Exactly.
if a police department approached me as a private citizen and came to me, I would probably try to help just because, I can't pass a kitten in a box that's going, oh, someone take him home, so I would probably try to help. But would I just stroll into the local police department going, hey, I'm a psychic, let me help you? Absolutely not.
Right, yeah, and I can definitely understand why you wouldn't want to go there, because, they would look at you like you would do something the wrong way.
Yeah, I'm a practical
happened.
gal. I'm a mother of 3. I'm from the Midwest. I just don't have time. I've got enough drama in my life. The last thing I want is more drama.
Well, it sounds like your kids have just passed the teenage stage, and teenage is all about drama.
Oh, God, yeah. If you want drama in your life, just have a teenager. You'll have it every day.
Yeah. Forget anything else that would normally be considered dramatic teenagers are just by waking up.
Yeah, it's true. And they will always give you a run for your money. And it's just, I just got my daughter back to college a couple weeks ago, and just trying to get her down to college was a thrill, because the whole night before we left, I kept having dreams about my husband changing a tire. And I said to him before we left, did you look at the tires on the truck? Because she had so much stuff we had taken down in a pickup truck. And he said, the tires are fine, stop obsessing. And we got about an hour outside of town, and there was this horrible noise. And about a half hour later, we were pulling off the road to find some little teeny tiny town, because as we finally pulled into a tire shop, our front tires shredded. So it took us an extra hour and a half to get her to school. We had to put 2 new front tires on the truck. And he just looked at me and said, you didn't tell me. I said, I told you I had dreams about you changing a tire. He said, you could have told me when it was going to go. And I'm like, sorry.
Yeah, did you tell him it just doesn't work like that?
Well, that's like the time he asked me to please pick lottery numbers for him. And he said, I just want a little money. So I picked numbers, he won $5. He doesn't ask me anymore.
That's the best kind of revenge, probably.
Well, he's just like, fine. I said, you said you wanted a little.
Exactly. And it's funny because a lot of people think that if you're psychic, you should know the lotto numbers.
If I had $1 for every time someone asked me to give them the lotto numbers, and it's hysterical because they sit there with those little clicky pens and a piece of paper, and they go, okay, just go ahead and give me the lotto numbers. They click, click, and they go, like, wait. And you're like, are you kidding me? It's like if I said, you listen to you, would you run to the grocery, you'd be like, oh, let me get a pen. What do you need me to buy? You're sitting there waiting for me to tell you so you can write a picture. Okay, so just go ahead and just give me those numbers, and they wait with their pen poised over the paper, and they're serious. And you're like, are you kidding me? People do that to me all the time. I'm like, if I could give lotto numbers, do you think I'd be sitting here or be on a beach somewhere?
I bet you if you surveyed the actual lottery winners about their psychic abilities, they would probably score lower than average.
Oh, yeah, they just pick numbers.
Yeah. Now, we're getting close to the break, but I had one more question along the psychic lines. When you're out and about and, not expecting anything, are you ever suddenly bombarded with something unexpected in terms of psychic clairvoyance?
Oh, sure, all the time, which is why I usually keep myself. There's a saying that's like, do you guys talk about chakras and stuff on your radio show? You know what the chakras are?
All sorts of things. Yeah.
I keep myself zipped up. I keep those 7 energy centers zipped up and closed down tight. I also don't touch people that I've never met unless I absolutely have to, and I shield myself really hard to try to lessen the chance of picking up something I didn't plan on. I took a tour of it was like a historic home in Wethersfield, Connecticut about 10 years ago. It was a home where George Washington had stayed, and my husband and I had a couple hours to kill for it, and I was like, oh, cool, let's go here. And as we were taking the tour, I started picking up stuff about the people who lived in the house, and unfortunately, I was so surprised by what I picked up, I blurted it out and completely freaked out the tour guide, who wanted to know how I could possibly know all that information about that family. So, yeah, it's not a good thing to be running around like that, because you can blurt out stuff and really embarrass the crap out of somebody or make people look at you like you're insane, or it's not quite the romantic thing people think. You have to be really careful.
Well, a lot of people don't realize that you may not be someone who actually would call yourself a psychic clairvoyant, yet you can go into, especially a historical structure, and suddenly it's like, there's been an emotional stain left on the place.
Common. It's very common. As a matter of fact, every human on the planet has psychic ability, whether or not they accept it or acknowledge it or use it is another thing. But everybody has some type of psychic ability. They can be intuitive, they can be empathic, they can be clairaudient, they can be clairvoyant. There's a thousand different combinations that they can be, but every mother in the world knows when Timmy's doing something he's not supposed to do. How often do you hear mom say, I just went to check on the baby, friend, I don't know why, and they save the baby at the last minute, or you walk in the door and your mom looks at you, you go from school and goes, what happened, what did you do? Everybody has some type of psychic ability, so it's very common, and it happens to people all the time. Some people who are open to it go, hey, what's this? This is kind of cool. And other people just go, I'm not talking about this. This can't be real. So, again, it depends on the age.
And, folks, it's time for our break. Please stay tuned to the Donna Shades, and we will be right back with our guest, Ellen Dugan.
Hi, you've got to listen to ICAR, that's International Community for Alien Research, www.icar1.com. As you know, I'm Irish.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Donna Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and I'm talking with Ellen Dugan about being a witch, an author, a gardener, a psychic clairvoyant, and that's a whole lot of titles for any one person. Ellen, before we get going on another topic, or even going back to where we were about everybody being a psychic, can you tell the listeners where your website is, how to find your books, and all that kind of good stuff?
Sure. The books are available at any bookstore across the United States, Barnes & Noble, Borders, anything along those lines. They are published by Llewellyn Worldwide, which is one of the biggest New Age publishing companies in the world. You can get the books online through Llewellyn. You can buy them in the bookstore. You can get them on Amazon.com. You could visit my website, which is listed on your homepage. I saw that you had it up there. There was a link to my website. Or you can visit me on my MySpace page. But you can get the books anywhere you buy books. They're there.
Okay. Now, folks, for those of you who can't remember my website, it's giascott.com. That's GIASCOTT.com. And if you want to listen to archives of this as well as the other radio shows, you can always go to www.paranormalradio.org, and you'll see a list of programs there, and you click on and listen to the one you want to hear. Now, we were talking about everybody being psychic on some level.
Everybody is. It's really important. And witches, for witches, it's important to tap into your psychic abilities and to validate them because it helps you control your magic. And as someone who teaches publicly, and I also teach classes on psychic protection, it always amuses me when I do a class on psychic protection where it'll be sold out. I'll have people standing room only, and then there's always somebody in the back going, "Oh, I don't really consider myself magical, but how do I do psychic protection?" I'm like, "No problem. I can help you with that." But everybody has some psychic ability of some kind. It's simply up to them to open up to it and to figure out what it is, and then figure out what kind of clues their body gives them. For example, if someone is more empathic, they're going to notice that all the information they receive comes through their emotions. If someone is more clairvoyant, they're going to notice that they see visions or they dream about things past. They become like a precognitive dreamer. If someone is more intuitive, they use phrases like, "Ooh, I just knew that was going to happen," or "I just knew." Someone who's clairaudient, or who's someone, they also used to call that telepathy, someone who's more telepathic usually has this internal monologue running all the time, and so they just kind of hear the thoughts in their head. They just kind of hear themselves say it. It's like hearing between the lines, or they just have like a voice pops their head and says, "Ooh, your girlfriend Marianne is going to call you today, even though you haven't heard from her in 6 months." And then boom, the phone rings and it's Marianne. So there's all different kinds of psychic abilities, and they can all be mixed together in different combinations. But everybody has them.
That's something that a lot of people just don't realize, is that psychic abilities are like our ability to walk or breathe.
Absolutely.
Some of us do it better than others.
Sure, it's like I tell people all the time. It's like singing. We can all sing. Not all of us are like Mariah Carey, okay? Some of us can only sing in the shower, and should only sing in the shower, and some of us can really belt out tunes, but still, with training and with practice, it is very to yank up the volume on your psychic abilities and then use it to your advantage, whether that's in business, whether that's in keeping an eye on your kids. It really comes in handy if you're a teacher. As a matter of fact, most police officers, most doctors and nurses that I have ever met are usually extremely intuitive, and they have to be. So is a good soldier, because they just know there's something they need to look at. Like a doctor's like, I think I want to check here. Or a cop's like, boy, I don't like this situation. I'm going to maybe look at this, or I'm going to run a check on this guy. Because they follow their intuition. They have to. It's more fine-tuned. Now, they may never admit it, but that intuition is a part of their personality, and it serves them well in their profession.
Well, that intuition that they don't like to refer to as a psychic ability is often referred to as a hunch, a gut feeling.
Yeah, that's usually what people refer to.
Et cetera. Yeah. I just had a feeling.
Mm-hmm. I just knew. That's always the big phrase. I just knew.
I thought it might be a good idea.
Yeah. I just kept thinking about it for some reason. I don't know why. It just kept coming to me.
It's something that has real practical applications, I think, because most of us live in an urban environment.
Mm-hmm.
And being intuitive enough to at least be really aware of your surroundings is an excellent idea.
Sure. It is. I mean, I tell people, if they want to practice their intuition, it's very easy. The next time they go to the grocery store and they're trying to pick out a ripe cantaloupe, hold their hand above the cantaloupe, see what they feel. And I don't recommend going over the cantaloupes in the produce section. But just, put your hand over the cantaloupe and just stand there and go and notice, does my stomach get tight? Does my inner voice say this one? Do I get a feeling that this one's right? Is it my emotions? Do I just know? Is my voice telling me, or do I just see that it's right? And then pick it up and take it home and see if you were right. Then you get a clue. Ooh, I just felt it. Ooh, I just knew. Oh, my voice told me it was. Or, ooh, I could just see it in my head. And then that gives you a clue. Ooh, well, if I felt it, then I must be more empathic. Ooh, if I just saw it in my mind and it was right, then I must be more visual. I must be more clairvoyant. If I just
maybe you hold your hand over it, and when you find the right one, it feels warm.
Some people feel that way, but I mean, it's a good way to practice. I mean, because you've got to give them something practical to practice on, because they'll look at you like, and I'm going to practice this stuff in my real life. How? And it's like, well, try that.
Yeah, that is an excellent idea. I guess I had never thought of doing that in terms of the produce section.
Well, I'm a mom. I'm practical. When I had 3 kids in 4 years, when I was trying to, fine-tune my skills, I didn't exactly have like a little meditation room where I could go off and play some nice music and practice my skills. I had to do it when I could. It was like, guerrilla intuitive training. It was like, what can I do here? I've got 3 minutes to myself. How can I practice? I could do this. So you just got to go with what you can do.
That makes absolute sense. And going with what we can do. Now, I did read that you're an avid gardener. And your books indicate that you have an interest in the gardening, too.
It's a sickness.
Well, many of us do have this sickness. Tell us about your garden and what your garden means to you, both as an individual and as a practicing witch.
My garden for me is twofold. Number one, I enjoy it, and it gets me outside, and I get to work in the garden, and it's dirt therapy is what I always call it. And it increases the value of our home, and it's beautiful, and it brings butterflies and birds into the yard, and it's fun to have. The second purpose that it has is that I grow herbs and magical plants and flowers as supplies and as ingredients for my spell work. And then also the garden becomes a sacred space for me. It's like my church.
Okay, that makes absolute sense to me. Now, for somebody who loves gardening and is interested in the idea of garden witchery, what would you offer as advice?
First thing, get out there. You can't do garden witchery sitting in front of the computer. You have to go outside. You have to get your hands in the soil. And for those people that are hopping up and down going, that's great, I don't have a garden, you probably got a windowsill or a deck or a patio or a front stoop. Do container gardening. In garden witchery, I give lots of ideas for container gardening, and you can easily grow herbs and flowers and plants with lots of different magical uses in pots and containers. Not only do I have gardens that completely wrap around my house, I also grow lots of flowers and plants and herbs in pots, too.
That sounds like excellent advice. Now, sort of from a reverse angle, I'll just switcheroo on you here. If you were to visit someone that you had barely met and see their garden, what would the plants and how they're placed tell you about them?
Well, there's this old quote that I use at the opening of Garden Witchery, and it says, "Show me your garden and I shall tell you what you are." And the point is, you can tell a lot about somebody by their garden. What kind of plants are they growing? Is everything growing willy-nilly and crammed in there romantic and cottage style? Is it very straight? Is it very regimented? Do they have like this poor little lonely soldiers of red petunias going down the sidewalk? I mean, is it very regimented? Is it very strict? I mean, do they blend their color together? Is it wild? Did they plant flowers and plants that will bring in the birds? You can tell a lot about somebody by what type of plants they grow and what they're doing with their garden, whether they're a beginner garden or a more advanced gardener. You can tell by the kind of plants they grow a lot about personalities. It's like asking a woman what her favorite flower is. You can tell a lot by a person by their favorite flower.
Also, I'm going to tell you a little story about myself here. Years ago, when my son was young, Tim and I decided to plant a bed of herbs, and I dug up the bed, which was shaped like a left hand, and proceeded to, we planted it with lots of thyme, because we had to call it the hand of time,
Good.
And then we planted flowers for the fingernails so they were nicely painted, and we did all sorts of things with it. So what does my garden tell? It was mostly herbs, but, you know, we did have the flowers for the fingernails and whatnot. What would my garden tell you about me?
Well, the fact that, are you right-handed or left-handed?
Right-handed.
Okay, then your left hand is your receptive hand, which means that you were trying to receive whatever it was that you planted in that garden, whatever it was. You were hoping to receive something from it. You weren't putting something out, you were trying to receive. Now, thyme is a Venus plant, which means it's associated with the planet of Venus, and it's also associated with the element of water, which means it's always associated with love. And thyme has been associated with witchcraft and magic for centuries. So what you basically planted was a love drawing in garden, because the thyme encourages love and it encourages loving feelings. Since you made it in the left hand shape and receptive hand, you were hoping to be more receiving of love and good emotions and happiness.
Uh-huh.
How's that grab you?
Oh, that's an interesting interpretation. I know we had a lot of fun with that. And
What kind of flowers did you have for the fingernails?
Actually, it was salvia, red salvia mostly.
And they were red?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, salvia is with the red color. You could say that's for passion and energy and for love and for healing. And so not only are we bringing in love into your garden, you're bringing in all those other attributes as well.
Uh-huh. Okay. And I was absolutely flabbergasted when I went to the store to start shopping for thyme plants. At there's hundreds of them, I swear.
There's a lot of different. I have about 5 different varieties of thyme in my culinary herb garden right now. I have orange thyme, variegated thyme, lemon thyme, regular thyme. I mean, you name it, it's down there. I love thyme. It smells so good.
And I do remember we planted sage in the center of the palm.
Wisdom.
Sage is still growing there.
And sage brings
I've
wisdom.
long since moved from the house. You know, I don't live there anymore.
Mm-hmm.
The sage is still growing. There was, in the pinky, it was not the red salvia. It was a blue flowered plant. And you know that my daughter has asked me several times, what is that plant? So I can't remember what I planted there.
Well, there's only discussion of a blue flower that doesn't tell me much. I have people ask me all the time, my neighbor has this purple flower. What is it? And I'm going, oh, God, here we go. I'm like, well, is it an annual or perennial? What does that mean? Oh, okay. That means does it grow back every year, or does it have to replant it every year? You know, it's just, you have to kind of spin it down to figure out what it was.
Yeah, I can't I know various plants I planted there, but trying to remember which one was that one, I'm like, I'm going to have to see it, so you're going to have to wait till I pay a visit. And since that's in Arizona and I'm in New Orleans, it's going to be a while. It's not like I'm going to pop over there tomorrow.
Okay.
But yeah, I was just curious, what it would tell you about a person, because I had never really thought about it. I know that particular garden was sort of tongue-in-cheek and fun, and we had a lot of fun planting it.
Those are the best kind.
Yeah, and there again, humor.
Well, there's a language behind herbs and flowers, and the language of flowers is an old tradition that goes back to beyond Victorian times, even when it was in its heyday. And if you want to know more about the language of flowers and what the flowers and plants in your garden mean, you can pick up either Garden Witchery or Herb Magic for Beginners. Garden Witchery has a very extensive list of flower meanings and flower folklore and what each plant and flower means. And Herb Magic for Beginners also has a breakdown of more herbal magic, and it's just a good guide for anybody who's interested in herb magic. But either one of those books will help answer your questions about what do the plants in my garden mean.
And what do they tell, because a lot of times,
yourself,
yeah, you need help to see yourself from the outside, I guess. You change the point of view of yourself.
There's magic in the garden, and you can't. I've never met a gardener, whether they were magical or mundane, who wasn't totally hooked on gardening. I teach classes up at the community college a couple times a year on flower folklore and flower gardening, and the minute you mention fairy gardens to the room, even if it's a bunch of tough, khaki, boot-wearing landscape guys, you say fairy gardens, and everybody perks up, and they're all like, ooh, fairy gardens, everybody starts taking notes. That's really popular, no matter who they are. Everybody loves the topic of fairy gardens.
Yeah, I live in New Orleans, okay, and so here is just not really fantastic. The lot I live on has been filled numerous times, full of oyster shells and
you got a tough gardening situation, absolutely.
I said, I'm not even going to try and dig in this dirt.
I would just do pots. I would do container gardens and just go crazy with that. Hanging baskets.
What I did, I built big planters, 4x8
foot planters.
And
That's what
I
I
went
do
and
too.
planted them. Like I have 4 banana trees growing in the center of one, and it's got other tropical plants and some tropical herbs in it.
Fun.
And and you can grow things here that you never could
Yeah,
in northern
because
Arizona.
I'll be muttering at you come December when everything dies in my garden. Thinking of you down in New Orleans with stuff that's still green.
Yeah, I have an ice cream banana tree growing in there. It's about 12, 13 feet
You're
tall.
not endearing yourself to me at this point. You know that, don't you? Because you're starting to tick me off. Because I'm going to sit here and think, oh, she's got bananas, but it's winter time, and all my stuff is gone.
And here I sit. It's 96 degrees, and it's supposed to be 96% humidity tomorrow.
We've got that in Missouri as well. We had 94 today and very high humidity. Yeah, we've been suffering through the humidity. We had triple-digit temperatures about 2 weeks ago here with really high humidity for about a week, and it was nasty here.
Yep, we can't. I keep wanting to find a place that stays like 65 to 75 year-round. They tell me there is no such place.
Yeah, if you find it, let me know. Because we have a thing where I'm from. If you don't like the weather in Missouri, just wait. It'll be completely different tomorrow.
Yeah.
We get anything from extreme frigid cold to extreme heat with high humidity here, and so I do understand what it's like to live someplace with high heat and high humidity because I've got it here.
I lived in northern Arizona for a long time, and I have seen snow the first week of August.
Oh, yeah.
And had over 100-degree temperature the same day. Now, I didn't change altitudes.
Right.
But there have been occasions, even at my home altitude, which was about 4,800 feet, I got sunburned in a bathing suit in the morning, and in the afternoon I was snowed on.
Got a lot of...
You want to talk about if you don't like the weather, wait till it change?
Yeah.
That's true. It's very true.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of the country that is like that. In
Yeah.
terms of witches, how do they regard the weather?
Well, the thing that I find interesting about witches is a lot of people curse and swear about the weather, where witches accept it as part of the yearly cycle. The part of the country that I live in kind of has that stereotypical summer, fall, winter. So we get the pretty trees in the fall, and we get the winter months. We pretty much stick with the traditional seasons. However, witches tend to honor the seasons as they change, because even though we're suffering to the dog days of August, when I went for my walk last night, I spotted a couple of red leaves on various trees. I saw a big flock of geese fly over the waxing moon, and they were all headed south, and I was like, ooh, the wheel year is turning, it's starting to change, So for witches, we watch the nature and we watch the cycles of the weather and the seasons because we know it's all interconnected and everything is always in a state of change. The wheel is always turning, it's always going towards the next.
That's very true. And even, for me, where I don't get huge temperature changes,
Right.
At least in other people's opinions, the days are getting shorter.
Shorter, absolutely.
It's dark when I get up, and it gets dark, in the evening before I go to sleep.
Right.
And, we will get winter. I will be bundled up like I live in Alaska the depths of January, and it will be, maybe 55, 60 degrees.
Oh, my gosh, I killed 55 degrees. That sounds beautiful.
Right now it sounds beautiful, but I know that come 55 degrees, I'm going to think I'm freezing. Yeah, my family makes jokes about me about me becoming a hothouse flower since I moved here. Because you get sort of a narrow and living in a warm climate.
Than people who live up north who don't have as long of a fall or a spring as people in the Midwest or maybe the farther south do. I mean, it just depends. Again, you have to go with the cycles and the seasons that are appropriate to where you live. I mean, the autumn equinox is coming up in about 3 weeks, and that is the time of year when it is equal hours of day and of night. And that is another Sabbath in the Wiccan tradition. And I also wrote a book about the autumn equinox, and it's full of all kinds of folklore about the harvest and about the season. And it's a really fun book. But the point is, that is a time of year where we stop and we recognize balance. And just like you were saying, I'm noticing the days are growing shorter. That's right. They are getting shorter, and pretty soon they're going to be equal in length. And you're going to notice that the trees are changing and that the weather is starting to cool off, thank God. And, things are starting to change, and you're going to notice the birds moving in and out. And, to me, it's all part of that cycle.
And we do get a lot of bird movement, even in this warm climate here,
sure,
because we're on that
side of the ocean.
We're right along the Mississippi, so we're right in that migration path for so many birds, and that's kind of cool because I haven't always lived in the warm part of the country, so I have lived like in Minnesota where the geese were and loons and all these other birds would do their migration, the pelicans.
Right.
So, it kind of keeps you in tune with everything.
Yeah.
You see them again. And
So it's up
okay.
to the person to find the magic in the locale and in the weather patterns of the area they live in. Whether you live in East Texas or northern Maine or California or the Midwest or Louisiana, you have to be aware of the weather patterns and the animals in your area and the way your
And even whether you live in an urban area or the country. Because
right,
it is
it's true. You've
different.
got to open your eyes and look around.
Yeah, it is different. In an urban area, it's not maybe as blatant.
Right. I mean, I live in the
You
middle of the
have to
burbs, and people consider me to live in the city because I live in the historic section of my hometown. But I mean, I think I live in the burbs. Other people are like, man, you live in the city. I'm like, okay, to me it's the burbs. But I mean, again, you have to look around. We still have hawks in our neighborhood. We have red-tailed hawks that land in our trees, and we have possums, and there was a fox that was running through our neighborhood a couple years ago. I get raccoons that hit my garbage cans, and I mean, we're going into their territory, not the other way around. So, I mean, you have to open your eyes and look, and I've got good friends who live in the city, who live in the deepest parts of the biggest cities, and they are some of the most talented witches and magicians that I know, and they use the magic of their surroundings to their advantage. It doesn't define who they are.
Right. It is very much true. Each area has its own kind of energy.
Well, I mean, the magic of New Orleans is legendary. The magic of New Orleans, there's a vibe and there's a magic there, and if you can't feel that, you're in the wrong part of the world. There's a vibe and a beat and an energy to New Orleans that just is special to its place.
Although it has changed
So
since
you have,
Katrina.
well, I'm sure, since the big hurricane and the flood and everything else that hit you guys, but still there's that vibe there, and people in your area know what it is and they tap into it.
Yeah, there's a saying, I've been told many times that this city will suck you in and swallow you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it can be kind of an addictive feeling. Well, I'm not native to here. I've only lived here 4 years. I can kind of see where, it's a city that can be very addictive, as well as if you've got an addiction, this is not the place to be.
Right.
And that's just sort of energy that I think it has.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of people don't agree with me, but that's okay. It is a place that you do need to be kind of grounded and know who you are.
You better have yourself ready to go before you go down to New Orleans, because there's a lot of history and a lot of magic and a lot of vibes down there. So you really need to be paying attention and see what you notice and what you feel and go from there.
And I've taken some odd pictures. I have one picture that has totally mystified me. It was just a picture of a pigeon to me, and this pigeon was in several photographs I'd taken in Jackson Square.
Mm-hmm.
But this particular pigeon is glowing. It wasn't glowing when I looked at it, but it was glowing in the photographs when I loaded them onto the computer. And I'm like, oh, this is a little weird.
It is weird.
Yeah, I can't explain it, but I can't explain it. I have no idea what kind of sort of camera glitch could have caused it, but that same pigeon glowed in like 3 different photos. Well, that was kind of one of those things you file away in your mental weird file. I can't explain it. I don't know what it means, but there it was.
That was cool.
It was cool, and there's lots of cool things here. Just as like I'm sure there's many cool things in the very way we live as well. But Ellen, it has been great to have you on the show. I'm going to have you back again.
Oh, I enjoyed it very much.
Oh, I'm glad you did, because since you're interested in coming back, if I made you miserable, you wouldn't want to come back now, would you?
No, I'd love to come back. Just as soon as we can pick out a time. I'm going to be insane through September and October. Of course, yeah, the witch's busiest time of the year. But, no, I'd love to come back.
Well, that's good. That's good. So, folks, it has been a fantastic first. Our time with Ellen is now over, and we will have a complete different topics after this top of the hour break. So, please stay tuned. We'll be right back, and our guest will be Linda Montaldo, certified hypnotherapist. Certified hypnotherapist.
Pathayanchik, the Black Knight of Talk Radio, inviting you to join me on the road to truth, being the path of non-contradiction. Join us each week on Feet to the Fire, a show with the goals of examining a subject matter on its own merits and test how it stands up to the many possibilities found in reality. All without pre-drawn conclusions found in personal bias. No left or right wings here. No pounding the pulpit of ego-driven my way or the highway attitudes. But there are no free passes given either. Answers to questions are important, but equally important is the reasons and methods used to find the answer. Like a contradiction to final judge here. On Feet to the Fire. Sunday evenings. Hey, listen.
You are listening to the Paranormal Radio Network.
Light up your night with the Kevin Smith Show. Hi, this is Kevin Smith. Join me Monday through Friday right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
That angels, ETs, and light beings walk beside you.
Are you ready to know?
That not only are you their creation, you may be them as well.
Are you ready?
To know that you have been trapped in your own beliefs, in your own mind, and never knowing who and what you truly are.
Let's explore these concepts and theories. Hear what they have to say. Join us Sunday nights, 8 Pacific, 11 Eastern. I'm Joshua James, your host of Saturday Nights on Paranormal Radio Network.
Hi, this is Rob Simone, and I'd like to tell you about my brand new show here on the Paranormal Radio Network. Each week, I bring you the most interesting people on the planet, the most in-depth discussions, and the most controversial issues. We go where no talk show dares to go. Join me every week for the Rob Simone Talk Show here on the UFO Paranormal Radio Network.
Hi, you've got to listen to ICAR, that's International Community for Alien Research, www.icar1.com. I should know, I'm Irish.
Tune in to UFO Undercover, Wednesdays at 8 p.m. Eastern, with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Back to the Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and my guest in the second hour is Linda Montaldo, a certified hypnotherapist. Now, Linda is not exactly sure that being a radio show guest is a fantastic idea, but she has agreed to appear and help all of us start to understand what hypnosis really is. So, Linda, could you give a brief introduction to our audience of who you are?
Good afternoon, Gia, and thank you so much for inviting me to your show. My name's Linda Montaldo, and I went and took a course at American School of Hypnosis and Alternative Healing, and they gave me a certificate that says I'm a clinical hypnotherapist. That means if I decide to hypnotize somebody, it's legal.
Oh, that's pretty good. Okay, now, I am interested in this hypnotherapy stuff, but I also heard that you can make me crow like a chicken. Now, how can crowing make me lose weight or quit smoking?
Well, and the truth of the matter is that if you want to crow like a chicken, I can give you a suggestion. But that's one of those urban myths that make people do anything that they don't want to do, even under hypnosis.
All right, well, other people have claimed that mass shootings are committed by people as a result of a post-hypnotic suggestion. So there's no way that those kind of statements can be true. You can't really brainwash someone into committing a crime by hypnosis.
Well, actually, if the person already has it within themselves to be a murderer, then a hypnosis session with unscrupulous doctor would send them over the hill, and they do it. But, that's mostly for the movies. That doesn't happen. There's 6 stages to hypnosis, and the first 3 are the only ones that we ever use. Now, when you get into 4th and 5th, that's for things like if you go to a dentist, you can be hypnotized and you won't feel any pain. You'll feel pressure, but no pain. The 6th stage, you could actually have open heart surgery and never feel anything. But that's usually used in extreme cases. Mostly what hypnosis is, when you're hypnotized, you're relaxed. You go to a place in relaxation that you can't get any other way. That's why they move you through, you've seen the movies, relax your arms, relax your wrist. That's so that your conscious mind gets busy with that. And the conscious mind, after a while, will think it's time to go to sleep. Because our brains work this way. Your conscious mind is in control of 5% of your brain. That's it. But it's always in control. It's sort of like the uptight part of you. That's where our intellect is. Now, the other 95% of your brain is controlled by the unconscious mind. And if you think of the unconscious mind as the supercomputer of all time, everything you have ever done is recorded there. And so when you can talk to the unconscious mind, it's sort of like you Google up a question, and the mind will bring it back up and tell you. And so, you said, how could I make you lose weight by this? You would go back to the place in your life where you decided food was important or food was a crutch, and you'd realize why you eat. So that's what you do with hypnosis.
Okay. So actually, you wouldn't be addressing the physical part so much as the psychological issue underlying it.
Right. The unconscious is in control of your emotions. They say that the unconscious is like a 4-year-old child. All the unconscious is ever interested in is safety. It wants to keep itself safe, and pleasure. So either of those things, you would have to go to get in control of it. Your conscious mind will stop you, and you'll say, conscious mind is always negative. I can't do this, or this is too hard, I have too much to do. But you get into the unconscious, which is a child, and you can tell it, this will be fun. And you can tell it, or you don't need to do this as a child. Everybody does hypnosis every day of their life. And everyone has been hypnotized in their life. It starts when we're babies. When you're crying, your mom goes, hush, hush, then you're quiet. Or when you're upset and she says, take a deep breath and say it again, then you're in stage 1 of hypnosis.
Okay, that's interesting. And now I do have a couple questions from the virtual auditorium. The first question is, hypnosis and brainwashing are different, aren't they?
Absolutely.
Okay, what would be the differences between the two?
Well, I'm not legally allowed to brainwash anybody, so that's the first.
That's a good start.
That's the first part. But in hypnosis, you don't change a person. Like I said, you cannot tell anyone to do anything under hypnosis that they would not do. And the old story about, oh, but will I tell you all my secrets? No, you won't. Even under hypnosis, you have free will, and until you get down into the 5th or 6th level. That's why you have to find someone you pretty much trust. You have the free will, and under hypnosis, if you just don't want to say something, you'll just be quiet, and you won't say it.
Okay. And the second question we have in the virtual auditorium is, what percentage of people are open to hypnotic suggestion, and what percentage cannot be hypnotized?
The only person that cannot be hypnotized is if you have a severe mental illness that keeps you from following easy instructions like close your eyes, then you can. And a child under 5 cannot be hypnotized because you learn at 5 years old responsibility. So a child under 5 will not pay any attention and cannot be hypnotized. Everyone else can be hypnotized. And I have heard many times, oh, my mind's too strong, you can't hypnotize me. The more intelligent you are, the easier it is for you to be hypnotized.
Do you have to be willing to cooperate, or can someone be less than willing, they're just verbally going through the motions of agreeing, and in reality they're not feeling cooperative? Can he still hypnotize them?
No. If you don't want to be hypnotized, you will not be hypnotized. The first part of hypnosis is the relaxation. and you're not going to. If you're doing this against your will, which I can't imagine why you would do that, but if it's against your will, you will not relax, and so your conscious mind will never let go. So, and you can pretend to be hypnotized, which, considering hypnotherapists charge you, I don't know why you would pay money and come in and then not go along.
Exactly. Another thing that we hear a lot about, especially on this program, is past life regressions. You know, you wonder, how can you be regressed to a past life? I have trouble remembering yesterday.
Well, you have to remember that everything that has ever happened to you is in your subconscious. That's when you were in the womb. Now, as far as past life regressions, I'm not sure if I believe in past lives, but I know that if you believe in it and you have a problem that you refuse to acknowledge as caused in this life, or if, some problems, deep problems are caused when you're very tiny, and you might not be able to go right back to that part. So to hypnotize somebody and bring them back to the womb and then beyond, it helps them. If they believe in past life regressions and they believe that this is what's causing their problem today, the belief in their mind will cure them. So if past lives are true or not is not the question. The question is that it helps the person. I recently took someone to a past life before the fear of going outside. She always thought that someone was going to get her, and this was a constant through her life. She would, at night she'd be watching people. If people talked to her in the store, she'd be afraid that they were going to get her, and nothing in her life seemed to indicate that this should be happening to her. And she truly believed in her heart there was a past life problem. We went under hypnosis. She went back to the past life, which was very horrible, and someone did get her. And for her, this was a cure. She knew what the problem was. And after that, she was able to go out without being fearful and move around. Now, hypnosis is not a one-time cure-all. To be really cured of something takes 21 days. To break a habit is 21 days. You can stop smoking in 21 days with hypnosis. But you have to repeat it every 7 days, because that's the length of time that a hypnotic suggestion will last. After 7 days, any hypnotic suggestion leaves your mind.
Oh, that's interesting. I guess I never realized that it was like timed, that it didn't work after a certain point.
Yeah. After 7 days, whatever I had suggested under hypnosis, your conscious mind will reprogram your unconscious mind not to believe it. Because remember, your conscious is always negative.
Okay. Now, I got another question. What else can hypnosis help with? Besides, we mentioned the stopping smoking, the losing weight, past life regressions. What else?
Hypnosis can help with anything. Any problem that you have is maybe not, an illness is obviously not caused by your mind, but your reaction to the illness is caused by your mind. It can help with pain. It can help with fear. Any mental problem that is bothering you can be helped with hypnosis. I would suggest that everyone learn a little bit of self-hypnosis, because you can take 15 hours, that would be good, but 15 minutes might be more practical. You can take 15 minutes a day and go through the process of the deep breathing and the quietness, and it will help you. You can also learn through self-hypnosis. You know how we think about things, and we think about how terrible it's going to be, and I'm never going to get this done. Well, we have learned that you hypnotize yourself in the morning, and when you start this thought, because we're such a computer age, you should say, delete. And it works. If you do this for 7 days in a row, you will find out that you don't delete, problems that you have and things that you can't really do anything about. When the thought starts in your mind, you simply say, delete. And because we're such a computer operating world, it works now. It used to be stop, but now, they found out that if you go delete, your mind automatically says no. And you stop thinking about, people can get in traffic and get so mad. What can you do? You can say delete and move on to a different thought.
So, in a way, when we use positive thinking, and keep telling ourselves, oh, yes, I can do this, and deleting these negative thoughts, it's like a low level of hypnosis?
Absolutely. That's level 1. When you listen to ads on TV and you're not even really looking at it, but you're listening, you're in level 1 hypnosis, and you repeat it time after time after time. That's why in a taste test, you can take a Hershey bar in its wrapper, and you can take the exact Hershey bar in a plain wrapper, and everyone will believe that the one in the Hershey wrapper was better, because the child within you is convinced.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I have another question from the virtual auditorium. Excuse me. At what level, he believes that you said, well, is the supposed alien abduction cover memory inserted, and why is it placed there? How are cover memories stacked, if you have any ideas?
Okay, the reason I even went and became a hypnotherapist is because I belong to an organization called ICAR, International Community for Alien Research. Almost forgot it there for a minute because I know it's terrible. And, everyone who thinks they've had an alien contact, the first thing they hear is get hypnotized so you can remember it. Well, you can remember anything you want to, but you have to be real careful of the questions that the person doing the hypnosis is asking, because even under hypnosis, your mind, you're in the unconscious, a 4-year-old child, wants to please this person. So if your mind can't think of something, unconscious is also where our imagination resides. You might say anything, so you have to be careful. Now, a cover memory to make you not remember anything would have to be level 5 or 6. Anything higher than that, your memory will bring it up. You'll remember it on your own. There's really no need to be hypnotized. But most of these memories are that depth 5 or 6. And if a suggestion was given to you in level 6 not to remember, you will never remember. Your mind won't let you.
Now, I want to explore the abduction sort of scenarios with you some more, but we're going to save that for the second half of the hour. Folks, if you have any questions, you can raise your hand in the virtual auditorium, or you can call in at 1-877-786-0562. Once again, that phone number is 1-877-786-0562. We are talking with Linda Montaldo about hypnosis. A lot of people have really no firm thoughts on what hypnosis is. So, I'm going to ask you some basic questions, and hopefully you don't find them too terribly boring. But what is the difference between whether or not someone is a hypnotist or a certified hypnotherapist, besides that legal thing?
Well, it's mostly the legal thing, because there are no legal boundaries on hypnosis. Anyone, anywhere can do it. But if you've got a problem you want to, help with, you should go to someone who has at least been trained a little bit. And so when I went to the American School of Hypnosis, they went way further than a little. Giving therapy to somebody is illegal without some kind of license. So that's mostly, why you go to school, why you get a certificate, to prove that you do know the basics, you do understand what's going on, because there's so many misconceptions about hypnosis.
There really is. The first time I was asked to do it was in reference to some information that it was believed that I had seen something happen, and I had no recollection of it. And, when they approached me about it, I was only like 18, 19. I'm like, oh, no. For one thing, I thought the hypnotist was a creep, okay? But I'm like, no. And it was frightening to me to think that this creepy guy was going to have control over me.
Well, you don't have control over anybody under hypnosis. When you're hypnotized, I don't know how many of you have ever been hypnotized, but to me, the first time I was hypnotized, I was shocked, because you know what's going on. You can feel if it's hot in the room, you can feel if it's cold, you hear everything, you're able to, to answer questions, you're able to say things on your own without being asked. You can even open your eyes during hypnosis. You just have this feeling that you're sort of in a daze, You're very, very comfortable. You know, you're not worried about, is my shoe coming off, or, how does my hair look? None of that matters. You're in a totally restful state. And when you're in that state, you we're talking to your unconscious there. And your unconscious is open. And anything you ask yourself or they ask you, the answer is there. It's, like I said, the best computer on earth. They'll just grab the file and repeat what happened. And you have to remember, your conscious mind only has 5% of your brain. And there's only so much your conscious mind can do. That's where your intellect is. That's where you answer questions. That's where you figure things out. Your unconscious mind can do so many things at once. It's telling your heart to beat, your lungs to breathe, your eyes to blink. Plus, it's remembering everything. And when you get information through your conscious mind, it sends it to your unconscious mind. That's why we think we saw something, and when we go to the unconscious mind, we realize we didn't, because the brain always has to make sense of anything it sees or hears. So
that's something that I, not only have personal experience with, but, I had read. When you see something, your mind, your eyes see this pattern, and your mind looks for a match.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't find an exact match, it will use the closest thing it has to match up, which may not be right. In my case, a garbage bag, a pickup truck, and some shadows turned into a gorilla, okay?
Mm-hmm.
I know there should be a gorilla there, but I'm seeing a gorilla. And, until someone else said, no, that's not a gorilla, that's a garbage bag, and then my mind made the correct matchup, so would hypnosis, even without that other person to correct me, and going back to that memory of me thinking I saw a gorilla, would it have made a correct match to the garbage bag it really was?
Yes. See, even you right there, if you had looked harder, you would have realized that's not a gorilla.
Well, I looked pretty hard. I've been looking at this for about 10 minutes before I said, it looks like a gorilla. I mean, who wants to admit I'm seeing a gorilla in the forest in Arizona, okay?
Yeah, but see, your unconscious mind knows it's not a gorilla. And under hypnosis, you would have said, no, that wasn't a gorilla. Look, that's a car. Your unconscious mind takes in all the small things that your conscious mind doesn't have time. Like it'll see something to the side of you that consciously you never even noticed. But under hypnosis, then you're gonna see everything around you. You can even pinpoint something like, they always do it in the movies. What was the number on the license plate of that car? Well, under hypnosis, you really do remember that number.
Well, I was curious about that because it was in reference to I didn't see an actual crime, but I saw things happening, you might say, in the perimeter of the area, and they thought that I had seen something. They wanted to hypnotize me to get a better idea, and I was like, oh, no. And like I said, I'm 18, 19 years old, and at 18 and 19, you're pretty stuck on these preconceived, even though they're fairly new, ideas that you picked up from movies and TV and whatnot, and it was like, this is a creepy guy who's going to have me crowing like a chicken and God only knows what else. Yeah, and I can understand why people would be hesitant to use hypnosis in terms of clarifying memories, which then again, we're going to touch on some more of that after the break, which is coming up in a couple of minutes. So, real briefly, what made you decide that you should become a hypnotherapist?
Well, like I said earlier, it's because I belong to ICAR, and we do a lot of research with people that feel they've been in contact with aliens. And the going thing was, for a while, was everybody get hypnotized and then you'll know exactly what you saw. Well, we saw so many of these people being, led in the wrong direction or asked the wrong questions. So ICAR decided they needed a hypnotist. And I think at the time I was the only one that could take off that much time to go to school. So I got
you got elected. Now, are you glad that you were the one that got to go to school and become the hypnotherapist?
I love it. I had so many misconceptions about hypnosis that were just crazy. And now that I've actually learned what it was about, I think everyone, like I said before, should learn to self-hypnotize. It's the best way to relax, And just in a passing note, 15 minutes of hypnosis is equal to 4 hours of sound sleep.
Oh, Lord, maybe I should come see you for half an hour a day. Yeah, save myself some time because I'm always running out of time every day. Yeah, I find it very hard to schedule 7 or 8 hours for sleep. And out of that 7 or 8 hours, I may only sleep 5 or 6 hours. And so for me, the idea that, I could possibly use self-hypnosis as a way of dealing with insomnia is very attractive.
And it would work.
Well, like I said, it's sounding better and better. I mean, the longer I talk to you this evening, the more you're selling me on the idea.
Well, if I have a second right here, Thomas Edison was well known that he never slept. He would sleep 30 minutes a night. But he also went into what he called trances, where he actually hypnotized himself. So he was getting his rest in that way.
Makes me wonder about some of these other trances people put themselves into. Maybe they are, in fact, using a form of hypnosis.
Oh, yeah. If you do any kind of meditation, that's a low level of being hypnotized.
Okay. Well, folks, it is time for our last break of the program. Do stay tuned, and we'll be right back with the Donna Shades and our guest, Linda Montaldo. Yes, Linda Montaldo.
And it all comes down
Hi, you've got to listen to ICAR, that's International Community for Alien Research, www.icar1.com. I should know, I'm Irish.
Tune in to UFO under 8 p.m. Eastern with your host, Joe Montaldo, right here on the Paranormal Radio Network.
Welcome back to the Dawn of Shades. I'm your host, Gia Scott, and I'm talking with Linda Montaldo about hypnosis. Linda, before we head off on another topic, can you tell the audience how to find your website?
Actually, I can't. I can write it down anywhere. I can go www.icar1.com, and on the front page, on the right side of the front page, it says hypnotherapy. If you click on there, it will go right to my website.
And if you want to take another shortcut, because I did look at your website, Linda, it's www.personalhypnotherapist.com. And that will take you to her website. Yeah, well, it's my job. I have to, look at this stuff and make sure I know something about what I'm talking about. Yeah, so going back to becoming a hypnotherapist, would you say that being a hypnotherapist would appeal to people who like helping other people?
Well, you definitely have to not mind listening to other people's problems, because that's the whole idea of therapy. And since I have 5 kids and a bunch of family, I was always helping somebody out. So I thought, well, maybe I can do this. And to be honest, I just went down there because it was a nice vacation and I was going to learn. But afterwards, I was so happy that I had done this. Learning about hypnosis and how easy it is to do and how much it does for you, I think anybody would love it. It's just such a way to calm yourself down, calm down other people, and then mostly what you realize is that you're doing this anyway. If you have somebody's upset in front of you, what's the first thing you do? Okay, be quiet, take a deep breath, now let's go on. So you've learned this all your life. If you're a parent or if you're married, you have learned to put somebody in a light hypnotic state because it calms them down.
That we talked about when we were on BRIC. You said that you didn't know how someone could host a radio show every week, no matter what mood they were in or whatever. And, I talked about, that for me, even doing live presentations, which I used to do several times a day, no matter how bad I was feeling, no matter how much emotional turmoil I was in, no matter what was wrong with me, physical, sometimes there were severe issues, you might say. For me, it was like I turned on and, my personal problems, whether they were physical, emotional, psychological, whatever, I didn't have to deal with them. They were separate. I wasn't really just me anymore, that, I was this person that was given a presentation, and that it was like a form of hypnosis for me.
And that's what hypnosis is. You have people zone out. They're actually in a light state of hypnosis. The one thing I did learn that really I found interesting is your subconscious does not understand sarcasm, and it doesn't understand ridicule. So if you tell somebody, oh yeah, you screwed that up, why don't you just kill yourself? You're actually telling their subconscious that they messed up and they should kill themselves. So people don't understand when they're talking. If somebody is already in a daze and you're saying this stuff to them, it's going right to their subconscious. Same way when you tell yourself, I will never get this done. Well, you probably won't, because you've talked to the child within, and the child within knows this is more than we can get done.
Ah, okay. So my mother, always nagging me not to program myself for failure, was really speaking the truth, huh?
She was speaking from experience, and she was speaking the truth. We program ourselves to be happy or not to be happy. Reality is your perspective on what's going on. So we're programming. something can happen to two people standing next to each other. One will be devastated, and the other one will see the way out or a bright side to it. It's because of the way we program ourselves.
Well, I bet you that is something that, well, I actually know from personal experience that that's something very true in the alien abduction scenario. Two people can have very similar experiences, and yet one will be completely and utterly devastated and horrified by it, and the other one will be like, wow, that's amazing,
Yeah.
I remember this, and this,
Mm-hmm.
And, so your self-perceptions, can you change them? Like if somebody says, you know what, I'm really tired of being miserable. I'm really tired of being afraid every time something happens, of being negative, of being sad. Can you help me out? Can you do that?
What I would do is first you have to find out what kind of person you are. There are two kinds of people, analytical and non-analytical. Because I know you're analytical. That's a person who has to keep their mind busy at all times. So you would when you're putting them under, you would give them something difficult to do. One of my favorites is, give me a baby's name from A to Z, boy and girl. Your conscious mind gets real busy with that, and then while you're doing that, the hypnotist would say to you things like, you know that you're good. Look at your life. Are you not taking care of yourself? Are you not helping people? Because your conscious mind is busy thinking of these names. So your subconscious is the only one listening, and they will hear that.
Okay. So in the old days when they had these subliminal messages at the theater, they had your conscious mind busy looking at something, and there was this other message that they would play either on audio or visual. That was effective and a form of hypnosis?
Absolutely, because you have to remember 95% of your brain belongs to subconscious. Things that your conscious mind isn't paying attention to, that subconscious mind catches. It catches everything. You can hypnotize somebody and ask them when they were 7 years old how many butterflies were on a bush, and they will remember, because their subconscious takes in every detail, because your subconscious mind is there for pleasure and safety. So to keep itself safe, it notices everything.
So if you hypnotized me and said what was happening on June 17th, 2002, I could actually tell you?
Yep, your supercomputer subconscious would open that file and tell you.
Wow, that's kind of amazing. Another thing that you talk about is doing online hypnosis. Or over the phone hypnosis. That a little bit mind-boggling. Okay, I'm not that experienced with hypnosis itself. How would you actually do something like that?
The thing is that the voice is the important part of hypnosis, and the willingness of the person being hypnotized. When you are hypnotized, you close your eyes and you listen to the voice. So it can be done over the phone. This is something new that they're trying out because of computer use so much. Mm-hmm. I would never, ever try this with any serious problem. This is things for like, I can't make myself study and I'm failing school. I'm always nervous before I get to an interview. Easy things. Those are easy things to overcome. I would never.
Like if I called you and said, Linda, I cannot remember numbers. Anything to do with numbers and math, I just can't remember it. Can you help me with that? Because I got this test coming up and I've got to learn this stuff.
Absolutely. Over the phone, because I would just go to your subconscious mind and the numbers are there already. Once you read something in a book, it's in your mind. It's just the conscious bringing it up is the problem. So the subconscious already knows everything you've studied, and you could do that over a phone. That's nothing more serious. I would never try over the phone or over the internet with someone who thinks they've been abducted by aliens. That would be shameful to even try. And the problem with that is because the memories that come back to them would be upsetting. And over the phone, there's no way that you can, give somebody the personal touch that you can in person.
Right. I have another question from the virtual auditorium. They're asking whether or not hypnotherapists have a special inborn skill, or is it a learned skill?
There's no real skill. The thing, day-to-day people interaction is what teaches you how to be when you're hypnotizing somebody. You learn, everyone listening to my voice right now has hypnotized somebody in their past. Hopefully not with a boring conversation, because, you know, that is a part of hypnosis too. But you have hypnotized someone in your life. You probably have hypnotized somebody this past week, as you have also been hypnotized in the last week. We just don't realize it for what it is. We think hypnosis is something you don't know what's going on, and you're in some deep world, and people can get into your mind and tell you what to do. That's not. That's level 5 and 6. But generally, no one goes over level 4. Level 4 is for things like I said before, pain at a dentist. So you're hypnotized when you're watching TV. You're hypnotized while you're driving sometimes, unfortunately. They call it road hypnosis. You just get into
I have
a
heard
zone.
about that.
You
get
get
into
into
sort
a
of
zone.
zone. Yeah. And then you're like, whoa, I don't remember driving the last 50 miles or however many miles.
Or sometimes when you say, what did you just say? It's because you had just slipped off for a while.
Uh-huh. There's been many times when I hear someone's voice, and I register that they're speaking, and I may even register that they're speaking to me, but comprehension of what came out of their mouth just wasn't there. I was in another place.
Do you ever notice sometimes you'll say something to somebody and they'll say, well, yeah, I said that last week. Subconsciously, you were listening, but just your conscious mind was on. How do people talk nowadays? You talk, they're listening to you, or they're deciding what they're going to say when you're finally finished. So a lot of times what we're doing is listening with our subconscious and thinking ahead of what we're going to say.
Well, as a radio host, I have to admit I'm guilty of that very often, because you do have to think ahead. And that's true for many people with their interpersonal communications, you might say.
Yeah.
You have to think one step ahead all the time, so our subconscious sounds like it's being kept pretty busy. I hate to jump around on you again, but there's another question I had. And, I guess it must be 10, 20 years ago, there was a lot of discussion in the news and whatnot about false memory syndrome. And it was blamed on hypnotherapists a lot, as well as other unscrupulous therapists. Is that a real thing, or is that something that the media dreamed up?
The media probably lies a lot, but this time they weren't. When you are hypnotized, the 4-year-old child within you is speaking. A 4-year-old wants to please you. And if you have a hypnotist that is not scrupulous, he can lead you very easily. And that's why when you're hypnotizing somebody in therapy, you have to leave your personal convictions out of it. I think this happened to them. Well, then you're going to go in there and hypnotize somebody and ask them questions that lead them to the conclusion that you already have. That's why ICAR wanted to get some in-house people to handle this, because, you have to not bring your own convictions into this.
Well, and the false memory also applies to alien abductees. In the mainstream news, they're really not going to discuss that particular issue in itself. But a lot of times they would refer to people who were in therapy, with personal issues, and everything boiled down to, sexual abuse as a child. So people were accusing all their relatives of sexual abuse that never occurred, because, whether the therapist was actually unscrupulous or simply misinformed and not doing things right, that's very debatable. But, it did happen a lot.
Yes, it did. Because if I ask you, the child within you, did that man touch you? And the child goes, well, of course he touched me. Because you cannot lie under hypnosis, but you can move the truth around to what you see. Did the man touch you? Well, yes, of course he touched you sometime in your life. This guy has, a hand or patted you on the head or whatever when you were a child. Did the touch make you feel uncomfortable? Well, if it's your father, sometime in his life he did make you feel uncomfortable because you misbehaved. So, not maybe sexually, but he made you feel uncomfortable. So the child within you goes, yeah, you're right. And then the hypnotist, if he's not strictly doing his job, will jump right on it and say, oh, is he mean to you? And the child hears the acceptance in his voice and where you don't have anything to fill in, your imagination will help you.
So when you're doing, you might say, a memory regression for someone who believes they've been abducted by aliens, it sounds like it's very important to be very well schooled on interrogation techniques so that you don't lead that particular person into believing something happened that never really occurred.
Oh, there's some rules. You never say anything alien. The word should never be mentioned. There's just a lot of rules. You cannot lead this person because this is the thing. You're in the subconscious. The subconscious saw what it saw. You know, maybe it made it different for your conscious mind to be able to hold on to it. But when you get to the subconscious, the truth is there. And if you saw something that wasn't human, your subconscious is going to say, this is like nothing I've ever seen. It wasn't human. And no matter what the interrogator asks, you're going to stick with that because your subconscious knows exactly what you saw. And it will not change. When you ask it, and, you know, then you can say, give me a description, how tall, how short. Well, that's not leading the person because your subconscious knows exactly how tall or short that thing was, whatever it was. And a lot of times, after you're hypnotized, you realize that it wasn't it. And so your subconscious will be disappointed because you've built yourself up for this. And that's the things that you have to watch for when you're hypnotizing somebody.
So how would you even ask, you know, let's just pretend for the sake of this conversation that you are regressing someone who did in fact see an alien, and you're now asking them to describe the face of an alien, and perhaps there's a lot of emotion attached to their looking at this alien's face, because I suspect this could be frightening. How would you ask them?
First of all, you need to, when you see someone under hypnosis become fearful, you need to remind them that this is something they're watching that's already happened. And that brings them out of fear. And if the fear doesn't leave in, you can suggest to them that they see what happened on a movie screen, a TV screen. Just watch it on the screen. You're away from this. You're watching this happen on the screen. And they will calm down. And you never ask for specifics. What do you see? How tall are they? You know, is the lighting around them bright? Can you see well? And then they'll say, yeah, I can see this, I can see that. And if they mention something, generally it starts out with, you know, you've seen the movie, you've read the book. The eye. I see the eye. Then you need to ask them exactly what they see, because the subconscious mind will be remembering that they're supposed to be big almond-shaped eyes, and they'll want to fill that in. But you ask them in detail, or you keep asking them over. You have to be sure not to lead them. Here I am leading you. But, you know.
Well, would you say things like, do you see a nose?
No. You could say, does it seem that this whatever you're looking at is breathing? And they're going to tell you, oh, it doesn't have a nose, or it's got a nose. Do you think, are you talking to it verbal? Do you feel that it can hear you? It doesn't have ears. You know, you don't mention any body part, because how many fingers does it have? What if it doesn't have fingers? So you never want to lead anybody in any direction.
Okay. So you wouldn't ask, do you see eyes, do you see a nose, do you see a mouth, do you see ears, do you see hair?
No.
Okay.
I hope anyone...
Now, would you ask if this person was being regressed because they had an encounter with a human of some sort, would you ask those sort of questions?
Oh, yeah. If they say, I'm looking at a human, then there it is. We all know what humans look like. So, first you always start with height. And do you feel afraid here? Because they're going to tell you if a person is looking at a human, you're not going to feel the intense fear that they're going to feel if it's not human. Yeah. So I would ask them, what color is his hair? What color are his eyes? And then they zone in on this person, and they can tell you what this person looks down to what belt buckle he is wearing.
And I think we could do a whole 2 hours just on how to do this. Because, a lot of people are really interested in the topic of how do you conduct an investigation on an alien abduction. So, it is an interesting topic, and hypnotic regression is frequently a tool used in the overall investigation, so it is very interesting.
I would ask anyone who decides to be hypnotized to remember what they feel with an alien contact, to be very sure of the person that is hypnotizing you. And always bring someone with you that you trust. And any good hypnotist will have it on tape and ask for the tape afterwards.
That makes absolute sense, and it would give you much more confidence, too.
Yes.
But unfortunately, tonight we are already out of time. So I hope you have all enjoyed our show tonight. If you have questions or comments, please log into my website, giascott.com, and click on my email address to send me a message. I do read all of my email. In the meantime, also, keep focused on your goals. Remember that it's truth that you seek, and have a peaceful and kind week. And I'll see you again next week, Tuesday from 7 to 9 p.m. Day from 7 to 9 p.m.